everybody, thanks for tuning in to our November Let's Paint Live. We're starting off the merry season with this adorable painting of a wreath on some pretty striped wallpaper. I'm extra excited to teach this one tonight because it's featuring one of my favorite new products, Folk Art Super Thick, which allows you to create these really full-bodied, textured elements to your paintings. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that tonight. And like always, we're going to have a lot of fun. So if you've never joined us before, this is our monthly Let's Paint Live. We do this the first Thursday of every month. So if you didn't know that, make sure to follow us on our Facebook and YouTube and all that good stuff. We always use, or we generally use, our Folk Art Let's Paint Live kit. I'd say 99% of the time. You can find that on plaidonline.com. And the great thing about picking that kit up is that once you buy that kit, then you can paint every single painting in our Let's Paint library. We have a whole history of our paintings where we teach you how to paint a painting in just about an hour with various different artists who all have various skill sets, so you'll learn a lot. So talking about our Let's Paint Live kit, I'm going to go ahead and go over all the supplies that you're going to want to have with you at home so that you can paint along with me. So the first thing is that you're going to want to have an 8x10 stretched canvas like this. You can use your Folk Art Let's Paint Live kit. Specifically from that kit, tonight we're going to be working with baby pink, navy blue, apple red, bright pink, wicker white, daffodil yellow, aqua, and thicket. The Let's Paint Live kit also comes with a great 10-piece artist variety brush set. So if you don't have the Let's Paint Live kit, then go ahead and pick up a brush set that has various different brushes in it. And of course, we're also going to be working with our Folk Art Super Thick. So it looks like this. And like I said before, it comes in these tubs, and with it, you're able to create really gorgeous textured paintings. I also have something round. I just, you can grab a little plate from the kitchen or a bowl, a roll of tape, anything round that's about this size that fills up your canvas is good to have so that we can trace a circle later on. I also have my heat tool with me so that we can speed up some of the process, and some plastic baggies and a ruler. Okay, so before we get started, I do want to mention that Harrison is going to be moderating the chat. So if you have any questions or comments throughout our painting tonight, then please feel free to comment them down below, and your answer or your question will be answered. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So first thing I'm going to do is take my ruler and a pencil. And we're just kind of eyeballing it somewhere towards the middle of our canvas. If yours is not perfect, that is totally fine. We're going to start by, actually we're going to start at the left, and I'm going to mark an inch like that. And from an inch, I'm going to go every 1.25 inches. Math is not my strong suit. So I'm just going to keep moving it and mark an 1.25 inches. Last 1.25 inches. We're going to mirror that on the bottom of our canvas as well. So starting off with 1 inch and then moving to 1.25 inches after that. Okay, so once you have all your marked points, I'm going to go ahead and turn my canvas so that I can easily connect all of these points to form some straight lines. Okay, so once you have some stripes going on your canvas, we're ready to start painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my bright pink and my baby pink to my palette paper. I'm going to grab my number 10 flat brush and I'm going to paint in the stripes, alternating between our darker pink and our lighter pink. So we're using these pencil markers as guide points. We're not using tape. You could use tape if you wanted to, painter's tape, to mask it off if you want a really sharp line. But I think the beauty in this painting is that it's a little bit looser. You don't see super duper sharp lines, and that just adds to the painterly aspect of this design. So I'm alternating stripes. And I always say, work smarter, not harder. So if the movement of your hands feels a little more comfortable to go left to right than it is up and down, then just change the orientation of your canvas for now to make it easier on yourself. So as you can see, when I get close to those guidelines, I'm trying to do a steady, long stroke. But then when I fill in the middle, I'm a little more slip-slappy with it, and I'm not so cautious about creating that fine line. One more dark pink. Okay, once you have all your dark pink filled in, I'm going to rinse my brush. Make sure it's nice and dry, then I'll go in with my baby pink. And as you're painting up to the lines of your darker pink, the darker pink is still going to be a bit wet. So if you so happen to pick up some of that darker pink as you get really close to those lines on your brush, that's okay. If there's a little bit of dark pink in the lighter pink stripes, it is not the end of the world. We're going to do a lot of blending after this step, so we can fix it. Okay, so once your canvas looks like mine, we're going to go ahead and dry this paint into place. So this is just our base layer. We're going to do a lot of blending on top to give it that dynamic painterly feel. But this is just to ensure that all of our colors are super opaque. We don't have to worry about going back and adding more layers. So I'm going to go ahead and dry this. Alrighty, once you feel like your canvas is pretty dry, we're going to move on to the next steps. So I'm going to add to my palette some wicker white and a little bit of our apple red. Okay, so I'm going to take my number 10 flat brush again. We're going to continue to work with that. And very similar to before, I'm going to take my bright pink. I'm going to start to paint in some of my stripe with just the dark pink to start. And then I'm going to dip just the corner of my brush, and I'll show you guys, just the corner, with our baby pink, and up and down, not side to side, just up and down. I'm going to start to work that into our bright pink. So we want more bright pink than we do baby pink. So when I load my brush, I'm going to load mostly with that bright pink, and then just the corner of my brush with some baby pink. And I'm doing, well, right now it's horizontal, but if you're holding your canvas upright, then you would be doing back and forth vertical strokes to work those two colors together. And then, while the paint is still wet, if you want to just go back and really make sure that those lines are as straight as you can get them, feel free to do that. Again, like I said in the beginning, it doesn't have to be perfect. Part of the beauty of this design is that it's a little bit looser, a little bit more painterly, so you don't have to have total exact sharp lines. But then we end up, it's a little harder to tell right now since it's wet, but we end up with a really pretty blended look to give some dimension into our painting tonight. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to do what we just did on all of the darker pink stripes. So adding that base of a bright pink to kind of bring it back to life, to reanimate it, so that we can work the paler pink in. And notice how I'm not rinsing my brush in between colors. There's really no need to, since the point is to blend it onto the canvas anyway. going to add a little bit more bright pink to my palette. Okay, so once you're finished blending in those darker stripes, now I can rinse my brush. And we're going to do something very similar for our lighter stripes. We're going to go in with our baby pink. And just like before, placing that baby pink down. So that our stripes are covered in paint so that we can blend in some other colors. That first layer was just to make sure that our paint was really opaque. Okay, but now I'm going to go in, touch that up a little bit, but now I'm going to go in with white. So same as before, just a little bit of white, blending that in, up and down. The more white you add, the lighter it'll be, obviously. The less white you add, the less white it'll be. And if you even want to go in with just a teensiest bit of that bright pink, you can do that too, just to add even more depth into your background. And go ahead and repeat that process for all the rest of our stripes. See, I just kind of went off the border there. That's okay. I'm just going to wait for that to dry a little bit and come back to it to touch it up. Okay. So now that we're done with that, I'm going to rinse my brush just a little bit and touch up some of those borders that I went a little too quick on. And if I'm touching up the darker pink border, I'm going to go in with just the darker pink. Then you can kind of blend it into the rest of the stripe. If I wanted to touch up the baby pink, I would do the same. All right, so it's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead now and rinse my brush. And then I'm going to dry this into place. Okay, once your canvas is very dry, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take whatever round template you have, whatever household item, a small plate like this, a bowl, anything round that you can use to trace with. I'm going to center my plate as best as I can, and then I'm just going to trace it with a pencil. Like that. All right, now we're going to do quite a bit of color mixing. It's going to be fun. So the first thing I'm going to add to my palette is some thicket, another little dollop of thicket, and I'm going to take out my aqua and do an equal part thicket to aqua. Next, I'm going to do thicket, and to that I'm going to do an equal part of our daffodil yellow. So 50-50 thicket and yellow. And then the last one with the thicket is going to be thicket, of course, and navy. So 50-50 thicket navy. Okay, so now I'm going to take a flat brush and I am going to do some color mixing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix my thicket and my aqua until we're left with this really pretty cool sea green color. And just mix until it's really well combined, like that. Okay? And one thing I forgot, really quick, I'm going to do, just like before, thicket, aqua, and white. And taking this brush that we just mixed the thicket and the aqua with, we can just go ahead and mix this mixture as well, since the only thing on our brush right now is thicket and aqua, and that's going to be in this mixture. So we get a lighter shade of what we did before. Okay, try to remove as much of that paint off of your brush as you can. When you mix with a brush, you get a lot of it in the brush, so remove as much as you can before you rinse your brush. And I'm going to dry my brush and continue to mix these other two. Our navy and our thicket, again, that's 50-50, so equal parts of both. So we get all of these various shades of green. And if you want to play with some color mixing on your own, if you're just working with the thicket, the yellow, the navy, and the white, you can try a bunch of different combinations, and those will all leave you with some type of green. So you can't go wrong. It'll all look pretty, and it'll all fit in our wreath. All right, so next I'm gonna take my number 2 flat. I'm going to dip it into my thicket, and following our circle here, we're going to start to create the leaves, the pines, the sprigs of our spruce wreath. So as you can see, I'm going in one direction. I'm going, for this version, I'm going counterclockwise. And some of my sprigs are kind of a little bit on an angle, but they all start at my circle and they just go a little bit to either side. So as we go around the circle, you'll see that the positions, like the angles of the direction they're going, shifts a little bit, but you just always want to make sure that it ends on your circle, and then you won't have like a wonky looking wreath. And some can be angled, but also some can just be right in line with the wreath. The fun part about this painting is that we're going to play with all these greens that we just mixed up. And we're going to do lots of layering. So if you're questioning me right now, don't worry, I promise it'll come together. And another thing to remember is we want to make sure that our sprigs are straight. We don't want any curved spots. So that's why you can kind of see, even if the sprig is following the line of our circle, it's still going to be straight no matter what. It's okay if it falls off a little bit. That's totally fine. Without rinsing my brush, I'm going to just go into another color since they pretty much all have thicket in them. I'm going to do this, this aqua and thicket color that we mixed. And we're just going to keep playing with it. Adding layers with different colors. And now that we kind of have the general direction of which way the sprigs are going, we don't have to like go in an exact circle. You know, you don't have to focus as much. You can just kind of have fun with it and just mirror the direction of your already painted ones. Whenever you feel like it, you can switch to a different color. And as we keep going and adding more and more layers, you'll start to see your wreath start to really fill out. It's already starting to look a little more like a wreath, don't you guys agree? Okay, so once your wreath is pretty filled in, you don't see a ton of empty space, you can go ahead and dry this so that when you're adding your additional colors into your wreath, you don't muddy up anything when you're layering. All right, and then we're just gonna continue adding in our sprigs. Okay. Before we move on, something I am going to do really quick, still taking this small flat brush that we have, I'm going to add some thicket to my brush, and I'm just going to create a line. It's okay if you pick up some of the other colors, going around so we have kind of a better understanding of how filled out our wreath needs to be. So the idea is that we're going to cover this line with additional layering of our greens, but this is just going to kind of act as a marker so that in the end our wreath doesn't end up looking too puny. All right, then I'm going to continue going in with our greens. See how that line kind of helps us to understand how to fill it out a little better. Just going in now, layering. And again, if you feel like there's a moment where you're like, looking a little full, you can go ahead and dry what you have so that your colors don't start to muddy. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush, and then I'm gonna dry this again. Okay, then I'm going to continue with my layering. So this is really the moment where if you want to kind of bring it back so you can see where your trouble areas are, where there's some bald spots, if you want to add some, cover some. Great time to do all of that good stuff. Until you're happy with the way it looks. And I'm pretty happy with the way mine has turned out, so I'm going to stop here, one more, and rinse my brush. And then for the last time, I'm going to dry my piece. Okay, so once your canvas is pretty dry, now we're going to start to work with our Folk Art Super Thick. So like I said in the beginning, this is a pretty new product. It is so amazing. I'm kind of obsessed with it. It allows you to create really beautiful textured pieces of artwork. So when you think of like impasto painting, that really thick textured work that stays textured even after it's dry, this is what we're going to be using. So I went ahead and did a little bit of prep work just to not bore you guys at home. I went ahead and I just took a palette knife and I placed a couple scoops of each of my colors that I'm going to be using of my Folk Art Super Thick into a Ziploc baggie. I closed it up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the tiniest hole in the bottom corner of my bag. It's kind of like piping, like if you're familiar with, if you've ever used icing before, if you've ever worked with a piping bag, it's a lot like that. So our goal is to bring all of the paint down to the tip that we cut off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure to my bag of paint. And I'm going to go around my wreath, adding beautiful, bright Christmas lights to our wreath. So if you pull up really quickly, like you can kind of see, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I'm really close to my canvas. I'm slowly letting it out, and then I'm kind of releasing my pressure before I pull up. We don't get that sharp tip at the end, as opposed to if I'm doing this and then I still have pressure, we get a sharper tip. So just be mindful of the effect you want to have. Stop applying pressure before you lift up and release, and you won't get that like sharp tip. And I'm going to do this with a couple more colors with you guys, but this is the fun part. There's a lot of great colors in the Folk Art Super Thick line. You can really choose whichever ones are your favorites to add to your wreath. I chose, make sure I'm getting it right, soft pink, orange, soft purple, medium blue, medium yellow, and red. But we're just adding little dollops to our painting. Isn't it cute? I'm going to do one more color for you guys. Let's do the purple next. So snip, tiny little tip off. If you were to snip a bigger tip than your your piping would be much wider, but we want it to be itty bitty. So that's why I only snipped the tiniest bit of the tip off. And your super thick will stay wet for quite a bit longer than traditional folk art paint. So you're going to want to let this piece dry overnight before you really start handling it. And just carefully make sure that all of those super thick elements are dry before you're, touching it. But you can see in our final piece here, it is very textured. It dries super hard, all these pieces, and you get that really fun, cool texture to your piece. So with that, you guys, the last thing to do is to sign your painting and you are finished. So I want to say a big thank you guys for participating with us tonight, for watching. If you're still here, don't forget that once this video is done being live, you can go ahead and rewind and pause. If I'm going a little too quickly for your pace, don't worry. This video will stay available for you to rewatch so that you can make sure to create your best work of art. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.